Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Late Night, Friday night, very late night, Friday night, Young at Heart, featuring nursery rhymes, stories, songs, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, Lewis Carroll, limericks, larks, epics, stories of the great operas, and such, to keep us all young at heart. Fr James DiLuzio tonight, chapters 24 and 25, summarized by yours truly of L'Avventure di Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. The originale. I'm offering you a summary of the originale, but the originale is so filled with wonderful wordplay and fun and description that you really owe it to yourselves to get a copy of the novella and read it for yourselves. But I nevertheless will continue with my summary so that you can hopefully be more enticed to engage in this classic for yourselves, for sure, and such, for sure. Okay, so you remember Pinocchio dove into the sea because he saw his father in a little boat on the horizon of the tumultuous sea. But brave and courageous, suddenly, as if from nowhere, and he jumps in. Now, of course, there's a terrible, terrible storm arises, and it's thunder, and it's lightning, and the waves are getting bigger and tossing him back and forth, but he's determined, and he swims and swims and swims. But the more he swims, the farther his father seems to go into and beyond the horizon. Finally, he swims all night, but he gets in the morning and the sky begins to clear. He sees a little island, and he tries desperately to swim, but the water is still tumultuous, still choppy from the evening storm. But Providence seems to be at work, for one huge wave comes and thrusts him onto the shore. He's so waterlogged as any wooden puppet would be, and so he takes off the clothes that he has and he tries to dry himself in the sun, but he's thirsty and he's hungry. He calls out. No one hears. He's wondering if he's alone. Is this island deserted? And suddenly a giant dolphin appears from the water and comes very close to the shore. A talking giant dolphin. Friendly, too, indeed. And Pinocchio speaks to him and says, "Is this island inhabited anywhere? I'm starving. I'm thirsty." And the dolphin says, "No, there is a city. If you go to the right and you'll follow a path, it will take you to the city of the busy bees, where everybody is busy, 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 working hard as can be and reaping the benefits of their hard work." Said Pinocchio. "Well, perhaps I will go there. I am thirsty and hungry, but I was wondering, by chance, did you see a little boat with a sail and my father within it?" "I have not seen a boat or anyone within it," said the giant magical dolphin, "but I'll tell you this, that these waters are plagued by a giant shark, a shark 5 stories high, and a mouth as wide as a train. We're all quite terrified, and I'm protecting as many creatures of the sea as I can." Pinocchio was about to cry, thinking about his father, but his thirst and hunger got the better of him. "Farewell," he says to the giant dolphin, and he takes that path and enters into the city of the busy bees, and everyone is at work. And Pinocchio is quite surprised, for unlike other places he had been, there aren't any loafers, there aren't any people begging. And he remembered how his father had tried to instill within him the value of hard work. But he didn't feel like working at all. After all, he was too weak after all he had been through. And still his father's voice continued to ring within his mind's eye. No, his mind's ear. To ring within his thoughts. "Pinocchio," his father had told him, the only people who have a right to beg are the people who are born sickly or born into poverty or have some deformity or handicap. They have a right to beg, and the community has an obligation to sustain them with food and clothing and shelter. But those who are capable of working, they have an obligation to work. And as much as Pinocchio thought, well, that would please my father, he figured he would just beg anyway. So he finds a man who is pulling wheelbarrows of charcoal, and he says, "Sir, could you please spare a penny so I can get a crust of bread?" And the charcoal man says, "Hey, I'll give you 5 pennies. Well, 4. I'll give you 4 pennies if you help me carry these pull these wheelbarrows to my shop." "Oh no," says Pinocchio. They look too heavy. I don't go into manual labor." "Well then, you'll have to starve," said the charcoal man, and off he goes. And then comes another person, a bricklayer, who has 2 wheelbarrows of mortar. Cement, you know. "Same thing. Can you give me a penny?" said Pinocchio. "No, but I'll give you 5. He was the one who said 5. "Just help me bring this mortar to my shop." "No," said Pinocchio. "Well then," said the man, "you should go hungry." And just when he thought he was going to just drop dead and die, to be overly emphatic, he'll do both. He said, a beautiful woman comes by, and he sees her carrying a jug of water. "Would you give me some water to drink? I'm parched, I'm thirsty." And the woman was very gracious and very kind, and she did give him some water to drink. And then he says, "Well, now that my thirst is quenched, I'm also very hungry. Can you give me something to eat?" And the lady said, "Well, I've been carrying this jug of water for a long time. If you would help me carry it for a while, when we get home, I will be happy to give you some bread." Pinocchio looked carefully at the jug. It did seem very large. It seemed very heavy, and he hadn't taken much to quench his thirst. He just stood there staring at it. The lady, pondering what this young thing was pondering, finally said, "Well, if you were really helpful, when we get to my house, I'll give you some bread. And I'll give you something more. I'll give you some cauliflower roasted in olive oil and sprinkled with a little vinegar." Pinocchio looks carefully at the jug and yet remains silent. "Well, I suppose," said the woman, "I could throw in a little candy." Well, against his better interest, but giving in to his hunger, Pinocchio decides to help her carrying the jar. When they get home, she puts the food out in front of him, and after he has had his fill, he looks up and sees this woman, and he's surprised that he hadn't recognized her before, but she has beautiful blue hair and gorgeous blue eyes and skin as white as pearls. He falls to his knees. "You are my blue fairy." "Indeed," she said, "I am." "But you were dead, you know." And she said, "No, this was a test for you to see if, in spite of all this laziness and misbehavior, if you still deep down had a good heart." "Oh, I do," said Pinocchio. "I cried and cried." "Yes," said the woman, "that is indeed true. So I will give you a chance." Chapter 25. She instructs him that he has to be a good boy. And there's this wonderful little repartee here. She said, "Do you want to be a real boy, Pinocchio?" "Oh, yes," he said. She says, "But you don't deserve it yet." "I don't deserve it." "No," she says. So here's a few little quotes from their conversation. "You just have to learn to be proper first." "But isn't that what I'm already?" said Pinocchio. "Far from it," said the lady. "Proper boys are obedient." "Well, I never obey." said Pinocchio. "Proper boys are fond of studying and working." "I'm a loafer and a vagabond," said Pinocchio. "Proper boys tell the truth." "Oh, I tell lies all the time," said Pinocchio. "And proper boys go to school." "School gives me a bellyache," said Pinocchio. Well, the repartee continues on, but finally the lady convinces him, and Pinocchio acquiesces that he will go to school the very next day, and we'll see what will happen then, shall we? Thank you all very much for joining me. Have a wonderful weekend. Good night, everyone.